to the next level. Welcome to another edition of SchoolOwnerTalk.com. Now here's your host, Dwayne and Allie.
Well, hello, Dwayne Brummett here with Allie Alberigo, SchoolOwnerTalk.com. Allie, good morning, sir.
Good morning to you, Dwayne. How's it going?
Doing well. Second week into the new year, and we've got some traction, obviously, with leads from Lead Hunter Media and Gus Lopez.
Oh,
so
yeah?
that has been great.
Oh, that's awesome.
We've been following up with those, you know. And then obviously I don't have a lot of follow-up I have to do. Why? Because of our other sponsor, right? Spark membership.
Yep.
Because of all of the great automations that they have, and also the ones that I've created with regards to my follow-ups once they come in the door, that type of stuff. So yeah, it's been a good year so far. And I've done some add-ons. Check this out. I've done some add-ons to memberships. So meaning I've had parents. I had two parents that came to me last night that said, I've been thinking. I go, let's go get your uniform right now. And they're like, really? I said, yeah, let's just get in right now. Now, I only made the registration fee off of them because they're the second or third, or even in one case, this is the fifth person in the family that's doing it. But that's still, obviously, that's still a stick strategy, because when they're inside and they're seeing the results themselves and having fun and doing the things, they're going to keep their kids longer in it. Although my retail sales should go up a little bit more too, obviously, because they're going to need the gear. They're going to want the shirts even more so. So yeah, so it's a great start to the new year.
That's awesome. And I love that you're positive. And I constantly talk to people. And I just had a friend of mine, old friend from the high school days. He's heavily overweight, and you're going to be talking to him soon, I think, or you did already.
We talked yesterday. We got to follow up to complete, and get the program set up on tomorrow's Thursday. So it's Thursday, noon your time.
Good. Well, that's by the way, for those people that are listening, that's for the health coaching that you're doing as well. My poor friend, I can't say poor, but I feel bad because he's so overweight. I think he's like 350 pounds. He just had triple bypass surgery not too long ago. Nearly died. So I just wonder, how people get that far in before they start to take action. But you'd probably know about that psychologically more than I would, being that you're doing this health coaching. But anyway, so I was talking to him. And he said, "Oh, Allie, you're always so positive. You're always so, upbeat. And I said, it really depends on who I surround myself with, things that I take into my brain, garbage in, garbage out, how I live my life. And I hate to say it, like I was looking at another post by another good friend of mine. He wrote, if there was one thing you could have more of in your life, what would it be? And I started off and I said, I don't know. I pretty much have everything I want. I have a beautiful home. I have the car that I want. I have a great family. I'm like, I don't know what else I could want more of. You could always want more money or fancier cars. But pretty much I'm happy with what I have. But then I said, you know what? Health could always be better. You could always be in better shape, have, lose some weight, be more fit and tone, whatever the case may be, have more. And then I guess this is the final result of health is longevity, live longer so that you can experience the things that you love. And that was my answer. Right. So when I finally figured it all out, I sorted through it in my own head. I'm like, health is all that matters. That's really it. Everything else could be worked.
Yeah. And I think those are all good things. You're right. More time with your loved ones, and less regret. Right. So that's what we got to live for.
Yeah, and aren't they all interrelated too? Like, because stress destroys your health. It doesn't let you sleep. Being overweight or out of shape works towards stress and not sleeping well, and disease developing and all these other things. So it's kind of a unique kind of catch-22. It all revolves around optimal health, and the world that we live in, especially in the United States, because I know that we're a very gluttonous type lifestyle where, when we buy a meal at a restaurant, if we don't have it over pouring out over the plate, we feel like we got ripped off. When I used to have my friends come from London, England, Scotland, Ireland, and they come and visit me, they go like, wow, you guys get so much food when they deliver it. Like, this is crazy. Like, we get like a third of that on our plate in England. Yep. And it's right. Whenever I travel there, it's true. Like, you get a normal portion. So it's crazy.
Well, I tell my health clients, the coaching clients, I say, look, we teach you that when you go out to eat, obviously we teach you how to order correctly so that you're still on program. But the other thing is we say, ask for the doggy bag in the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
And as soon as they put that meal down, you separate it out because you're bringing stuff home. And it's right to your point where it is a overportioned size. And it's not what you need. And so I have clients that tell me, yeah, now that I'm on program, I actually see how much I'm getting when I go out to eat.
Oh,
and
yeah.
they take it home with them.
Well, I go out every Wednesday and I tell them, I go like, listen, I get my a portobello mushroom with an onion on top and some tomato, no bread, nothing. And I say, I'll have a little monkey. That's what they call it. A little tiny monkey paw dish of, and it's in the terms of like waitressing, that's a tiny little dish because the size of a monkey paw. So I say, I have a monkey size worth of potatoes, and they usually bring me a big, huge plate. And I go, I didn't ask for this. And they go, don't worry, I'm not charging you for it. I go, no, I don't want it, because if you leave it on the table, I'm going to eat it. You got to take it away, that kind of thing. And inevitably they don't take it. Inevitably I eat it. And I'm pissed off. Like, so I'm just bring me what I asked for. Don't bring me more, because I could care less about the money.
For it.
Right. I don't want the money. I wanted the health portion. But anyway, so today,
yesterday,
real
quick. The other reason that you're always in a good mood is because you said you surround yourself with people that are in good moods, or at least are going to lift you up. And like for me, I've got a great friend. He just happens to live in New York, who buys me nice shirts for Christmas. Right? That's what you got me.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Well, that's cool. Look, for the listeners that can't see what you just showed, if it's on the podcast, just on iTunes, that's a not Betty White. It's a Golden Girls shirt, because you're a big fan of the Golden Girls TV show. And,
oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah. So I said, hey, I'm going to get Dwayne something really unique this year, and I want to try to find something fun. And that's what I ended up figuring out. So I'm glad you enjoy it. I'm happy that you're wearing it. Thank you for showing everybody. So Dwayne, yesterday,
absolutely.
Yesterday you sent me a post. You're like, behind the scenes, you sent me a message that some guy tried to post on our business page, and you said to me, hey, Allie, is this the guy that you always have, that's kind of stalker, who always says negative things about you, right? I've told you about a few people, old students and things of that nature. And it just so happened to be another hater of mine. But it wasn't the normal person. But it said something like, why would anyone listen to Ali Alberigo when he just closed one of his schools? Like, you go and like, not knowing any context, not knowing why I did what I did, not knowing that I sold the building, whatever the case may be. He just looked at it from the outside in, probably drove by my building and noticed that I was no longer there, thinking that COVID took me out, or I failed and I couldn't handle it, and yada, 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 not knowing that it was a conscious decision and so on. But anyway, there's always going to be those haters, and they're going to post. But of course, we deleted that post. She's like, I'm not going to approve it. But people are always coming at you.
Well, wait. Let me say this. We have on our blog or on our podcast website, the way that it's set up, I have to approve everything. So it never even posted. So it's not like it's even there.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. Even with Spark, if Spark people give you a negative review, you have to authorize it before it goes on social media, right? So it's kind of cool. You could filter out negative reviews on the Spark software if you wanted to. But anyway, I want to say it doesn't bother me. But right away, I'm immediately running scenarios in my head, justifying why he's wrong and I'm right. And that's not really what happened. Just like I kind of did when I mentioned the whole thing. And, it's all about how we feel with these posts, like what they do to us, the negative impact of negative posting and so on and so forth. So I figured today we always look for a topic. I said, why don't we talk about that? How do school owners, how do businesses handle negative posts on the internet, whether it be Google, Yelp, Facebook, et cetera. And I don't know if you have any insight, like what's your policy? I don't know if you've had any and how you dealt with them, et cetera. So why don't you give us some insight on that as well?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, first and foremost, I think it's important for us to take a look at it in a way that we want to learn from it and not be offended. Even though that's difficult, we want to take a look at it as a learn, see if there's anything in there. So one, if you already have a list of people that are haters, for lack of a better term, you're going to consider the source. Okay. So that's first and foremost, just consider the source. Then if it's not one of those sources, then you want to take a genuine look at what they're saying. And you might have to, if it makes you that angry, if it pisses you off that much, you might have to set it aside and then come back and look at it. But if you can, try to look at it as quickly as possible and as objectively as possible, trying to learn what the situation is. And it might be just as small as they in text, obviously, if they're getting their information via the internet and you didn't articulate what needed to be articulated and they inferred it to be something else, you might be able to settle that. If it's someone that you can call, that is a student that you can follow up with, I would do that. And I would do that behind the scenes. And I would just say, hey, I just wanted to touch base. I saw that, this comment. And, first off, I want to apologize and see where we're at and what I can do to rectify the situation. But first, can you tell me from your point of view, what's happening? Like what, how do you feel that, that type of thing? Because a lot of times I think it's just miscommunication. I really, really do. We're all busy. Like, so for instance, I had a health coaching client last night text me, and the way that it was written or the way that I read it, I thought she was basically saying, I'm doing horrible on this program. Horrible. And I took that also based upon our conversation the day before, because she had a really, really rough day the day before. And so I already had a negative view when I opened that text.
Right.
So I'm like, hey, look, let's just talk tonight. And we followed up, and she said, oh yeah, today was an amazing day. It was much better than the day before, yada, yada, yada. Right. If I would have posted about that, I would have posted that, they had a negative review about it or a negative X about it or whatever.
Right.
Because that's where I was at. So I think if you can do a one-on-one conversation behind the scenes, that's going to be important. And then the other reason that's important too is because you guys are talking on the phone. There's context that can be heard. There's voice inflection that can be heard and understood. There is the opportunity to go, oh, I see what you're saying, or I understand, or I'm sorry. Nothing can be really misrepresented to a certain degree, as long as you have a logical person on the other line, right?
Right.
But on top of that, it's a conversation, and unless the other person is recording it on the other end,
right?
Plausible deniability, right? No,
yeah.
I'm just kidding. No, but what I'm saying is it's not in text, it's not on the internet, it's not there for everyone to see.
Right.
And everyone to critique or even chime in on.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. If you can solve issues one-on-one, that's where you want to go. I know I've monopolized this answer for a while, but your turn.
No, dude, it's all good stuff. Keep going. If you have more to say, I like it. I think honestly, the key word is communication, right? And it's kind of interesting because I just had two family members, cousins actually, up for renewal. So I said, hey, I'd like to send you out your new agreement. Congratulations. Can you sign it if you're going to continue and get back to me, or not if you're not, or if you have any questions. And then and they've been with me 3-4 years, the kids, and the two parents were like, we'd like to review the contract first. I'm like, it's the same exact agreement that you had for the last 3 years and haven't changed. Well, we want to read it over. Would you sign something without reading it? I'm like, oh no, I'm not asking you to sign anything blindly. I'm going to send you the agreement. You read it. If you don't like it, you don't sign it. Anyway, back and forth, I don't understand, Shion. All I'm asking is for you to just send me the agreement. And I'm like, I call them up on the phone. I didn't get them, but I left a message. I'm like, I don't know what the confusion is, because this is a person that actually during the COVID issue came to me and said, we're out of work. Can you work with me? I gave him free months. I gave him discounts. I go, I never, ever would hurt you. If you need to cancel, you let me know. You're out of work. We'll sponsor you. So I just left a message like that right away. They wrote me back. Everything's all good, because they heard the tone in my voice. The written word, I honestly believe, is taken at the moment that you read it with the emotions that you're feeling. So like if you're pissed off and someone writes to you, listen, calm down. Don't be upset. We're going to work through this out. They're going to be like, yeah, right. We'll work it out. Like they have that attitude, right? But when, you said before, take that time.
Yeah, I was going to say real quickly, in teaching de-escalation skills, you never tell anybody.
Right, exactly.
I mean, that is the things you can do, so so the same thing in your verbiage, you don't want to do that either. Sorry, I just wanted to throw that out.
No, that's so true. That's verbal judo 101, right? You're like, relax, calm down. Like, don't you tell me what to do? Like, because people are heightened, they're ready. That's an order, and they're going to defy that order. So, but I knew if I just mentioned it, and then they could hear my voice and hear that I'm genuine. Like I'm like, listen, you signed the contract. If you're out of work, you tell me, and then we'll cancel it. I'm not going to kill it. You go, who cares? You're broke. I'm going to take your car now. Like, I want to work with everybody and help them. That's all I've been doing for the last year. And I think they heard that, and right away it was no issue. So I think the key thing is take a day that you said before, wait so you could see your emotions, and you read it as, on a day later when you're less emotional about it, and then communication being the key.
Yeah. And then I was going to say the next thing. And number one is if that is coming from a person that is on your list, that is a hater, and there's no way that you're going to reconcile with them, you don't even entertain it. Right.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing is, if this is on your Facebook page with regards to your school or your personal Facebook page, you can go in and you can block that individual. I've done that before. There is another martial arts school owner in our town who, for some reason, he doesn't like me. And we've talked about him before, you and I have. But anyways, he was trolling on my Facebook page, my business page, and he was actually messaging other people. So I'd have students that would make comments, and then he would go into that student or that parent of that student, and then go and message them privately saying, hey, what he's teaching you is crap. You should come check out our school. We're a real school, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And I had parents that would tell me that, and I wouldn't have known that was happening behind the scenes had they not said that. So then I went and I blocked him from my page. I also blocked him from my personal page.
Right.
And then he got wind of like, this was 2 years ago, that we had a free self-defense seminar, and he signed up for it. So through Spark, I saw that he signed up for it. I messaged him back and just saying that, we basically refuse the right to have you come in. And he messaged back, look, this is a public event. I can come. And I said, but it's on private property, and I reserve the right to not accept your invitation. And then in addition, I said, if you decide to come, law enforcement will be called and you will be taken off the premises.
Right.
Because yes, it's a public event, but I'm a private business.
That's great though that you did that. And isn't it amazing that go ahead.
In addition to that, I printed out all of that. And then I went to the police department in my town, and I gave them the printout, and I filled out a report. And I said, I just want this on file so that if he shows up, and I said, if you can have, an officer in the vicinity at 7 o'clock on that Friday night, just so that if we call that he's close by or she's close by, I said, I don't think he'll show up, but just in case, I said, I'm not playing around. I was immediately, but I see him. I said, I will have an instructor standing in the vestibule, and I've already shown them pictures of him. And if they identify that person coming out of the car, they literally will pick up their cell phone and call 911 right then.
Right. Amazing.
So and it's not that, look, maybe he can beat me up. I could care less, right? It's just the fact that I'm going to protect my business. I'm going to protect my students. I'm going to protect the employees that I have. Again, not that he's coming in to do anything bad. That's not what I mean. It's just I have levels and I have rights as well, and I'm going to exercise those rights.
Yeah, and it's so true. And by the way, it's kind of interesting because, I think everyone who's heard this before knows I'm a huge fan of the band Stryper. And I love their music, but they're controversial. They're a Christian rock band. They're playing heavy metal. So there are a lot of Christians that don't love them, and they're a heavy metal band. So because they're Christian, there are a lot of metal guys that, and I've been trying to get an interview that we could do with him, you and I, because I see his posts, and he's a very genuine person. He speaks his mind, he speaks his heart about God and his beliefs, and he gets trashed for it at times. Sometimes he gets commended, but I always wanted to know how, as a human, he deals with it on a scale we're doing it with 5 people. He's doing it with 500,000 people, and the negativity. And it's amazing. I know you said there's no sense talking to an irrational person, right? Because no matter what, if you think about politics, blue or red, no matter who you are, those sides don't tend to meet, and you can't even have a logical conversation and say, but what about this and what about that? And when people are so dug in and they're set, they're not going to change. I'll give you an example. I'm going to try to find it on my, actually, I'll just summarize it. I had a student about 4 years ago, young black belt of mine, when one of my, maybe 5 years now, when one of my other guys left and opened up his own school, he kind of grabbed a lot of my younger, more volatile black belts and told them a whole bunch of garbage, and a lot of them followed him. So I got this message from this one young kid I really liked a lot. I'd always bust his chops and we'd joke. And anyway, he ended up going over to that other school. And then he wrote me this big, nasty thing on Google reviews. I'm all about the money. All I care about is money. I'm a jerk. I'm this, I'm that. Anyway, I responded, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And then I blocked his social media. But just the other day, maybe about a week and a half ago, he wrote me this big, long apology letter on Instagram. I'm really sorry. We've had our struggles, blah, blah, blah. We've had our ups and downs, but I want you to know that I took the lessons that you taught me, and I'm now in college in my year. I'm going to Tennessee. I'm a music major, and I'm working at a famous music studio, and I want to thank you for all the things you've done. And I'm like, is this really you? His name was Brian. Brian, is this really you, or you're just trying to lure me in to hurt my feelings again like you did in the past? I said, if it's not, and this is genuine, please respond. I'd love to rekindle our relationship. I never heard back from him again. It must have been like a fleeting emotion in the middle of the night that he wanted to apologize for the way he treated me. But you just never know why people are doing what, could be drinking. I don't know. But it was well written, so it didn't seem like it wasn't written.
Hey, that's truth serum, man. That's truth serum. Yeah. So it was true.
It's true. That's true. So here's some things I wrote down, Dwayne, for you and I, so topics to talk about, how do you handle a negative review? And by the way, how does a negative review impact you? How have you built those muscles to not let it, because the guy who's put me down that you sent me the thing, I deleted it and got it out of my head as much as I could, but it still bothered me. We're talking about it a day later. We're doing a topic on it, so how do you deal with it, emotionally? Someone doesn't like you. I know it's your baby, your school. It's what you've invented. It's what you put your heart and soul into. How do you, and tell the other school owners how to maybe purge themselves, or how to think? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So you have to be, and I learned this from Keith Hafner, is you have to be immune to criticism. You just have to. Mm-hmm. For me, if my wife says something, that hurts. If my kids say something, that hurts. Obviously, if my mom said something, that would hurt, right? I think, Mr. Bean has earned the right to hurt my feelings too.
Right.
Right. You and I, with our relationship, you've earned the right to hurt my feelings. Mm-hmm. But those individuals that have not earned my right, or earned the right, they can't hurt my feelings.
Right.
And I know that probably sounds easy, cliche, whatever. I guess I don't look at my business as, it is my baby, but I don't look at it as in my baby that I need to fight for.
Mm-hmm.
It is my baby that stands on its own, and it will prove itself over time. And I'll give you a for instance. When I bought my partners out, there was a faction that were angry at me, and they started their own little thing. My wife was livid. And of course, some of them, not all, some of them were talking about me.
Yeah.
And, my wife had said, and this was before social media where you could all post all that stuff, right? But,
Right.
My wife's like, well, what are you going to do about that? And I even got a letter. I got a letter from a husband one time, because one of the ladies that left, her and her husband and well, the family, they left. The mom walked into the studio while I was having a tournament, as if she could just walk in and see what the heck was going on. And I'm like, no, you have to leave. Well, I got a nasty letter from her husband, who said to me, just, I'm attacking a woman. And by the way, I pulled her into my office. I had another adult who's older than me, adult black belt with me, so that I had confirmation of what was being said.
Right.
I politely said what I had to say, and I sent her along her way. So I get this letter, and of course I show my wife, and she's angry, and rightly so. Somebody's attacking your husband, whatever. I said, I'm not going to do anything. She's like, what? You're not even going to write anything back? I said, no. I said, the worst thing I can do. I said, I'm not going to put anything in writing.
Right.
And I'm definitely not going to talk to him face to face, not because I'm afraid of him, because it isn't going to do anything.
Right.
And I said, look, time will show who we are, and time will show who they are.
Right.
I really, really, truly believe that. If I am consistent and if I have integrity, that is going to speak volumes compared to what the hate can bring. So fast forward now, and I'm not saying this happened because, I didn't do anything to rebuttal, but, it's a broken family. There's been drug and alcohol that's been involved in that family. It's a mess.
Right.
With that family, and they're no longer together, and yada yada yada. And so I just really believe that if I stay true to who I am and what my mission is, that I mean God's going to take care of it, and I don't have to fight for it, And really, in the grand scheme of things, to me, it's not mine to fight for. I really believe that God allowed me to have this studio, and that He's going to fight for it if He wants it to stay open, and He's going to close it if He wants it to be closed. And it wouldn't matter if I tried to fight to keep it open and He wanted to close, because it's going to close. You know what I'm saying? All right, listeners, I'm just going to let you know that Allie's talking to me via my ear pod right now, but I know that this is still being recorded, so everybody's going to be able to listen to you on the podcast. So they will hear you on the podcast, but the audio podcast, but they're not going to hear you live right now. Yeah. So Allie's computer's rebooting right now, but I can keep going, and I can relate to you what Allie's saying to me in my ear too, if we need to. But so anyways, that long story short, that's what happened with regards to that individual. And so I think that, one, you have to be immune to criticism, and that's sometimes hard. Some of us have, especially as martial artists, some of us have a little bit bigger ego than others, which I think at some time is actually really good. I don't know that I have a big enough ego for myself that it's going to bother me. And I don't mean ego in a bad way, because I don't want anybody to take it that way. I just, I've never been a fighter unless I've had to fight. And I hope that kind of makes sense to the listeners. But and then I think I'm going to get Allie in here. I think the other thing on top of that is, if you start to get bad reviews where they, actually fill out the thing on Yelp or Google review or your Facebook reviews, you do need to have a system that is set in place to follow up with that. And I believe we did a podcast on that gosh, that might have been 2 years ago. I can try to look it up. But I think if you go to schoolownertalk.com and type in social media, I'm sure we have social media rules that'll come up because we did a podcast on that. And then how to bury, basically those reviews. But in a nutshell, I think what you do is you need, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I wanted to comment on that thing you were talking about with the family dynamic. I once had an issue, and a quick summary of the story. A parent was upset. The dad had an attitude, always had an attitude. I finally was fed up with his negative comments, and I said, okay, take your kid. I wrote a refund check. Take your kid out of the school. You're done. I got a call later from the wife. Can I please meet with you? I'm like, listen, I've had it. Please just meet with me. And I did. And she's like, you have to understand that he's only half of the parenting dynamic. She says he's a very abrupt person. He's negative by nature. I don't want to say that she said it, but she made him sound like he was bipolar, which he may have been. And she says, please reconsider, because I don't want my kid to suffer for his actions when my kid loves the school and I love the school. So we have to understand, like you said, in your little story that you told too, there was some alcohol abuse and attitude. So you just never really know what's going on. And really, if people complain and they're miserable, there's always probably something wrong, more so than what meets the eye, right? Like, why are they so upset? Why are they taking it out on you? And very well, maybe something was done incorrectly. Like I had recently a young girl, I love her to death, and her family trains, and she got upset, came out into the car after class and was crying, and the mom went off on me, texting me, your instructor, not my head instructor, but a junior instructor, he shouldn't be teaching, he's too young, he's a 13-year-old. I go, no, first of all, he's 17. Second of all, he's been through 8 years of instructor training. I said, but what's wrong? And it turned out that he was goofing with her, joking around, but she took it the wrong way. So once we figured it all out, we're all back to normal, but it goes back to that communication barrier and so on. So important to understand that not always is that family dynamic one-sided. So that's all I wanted to say. And I'm sorry if I threw you off track.
No, you didn't throw me off track. I'm actually taking time to find those podcasts that I talked about. Okay, cool. So well, let me put them in the link here.
Yeah, and I'm saying too that, so another thing we have to ask ourselves, how do negative reviews, a bad conversation, an issue with a family member, a parent, or whatever the case, a fight with your wife at home, how does that impact your performance? And my yoga teacher, he was 124 years old when he passed away. His name was Swami Bawaji. He's amazing, amazing individual. He used to say to me, while we're fixated on the issue at hand, that person who spoke negatively and what we believe that they think and feel, he says they're probably out, and he used this term because at the time of his life, I'm sure this was a popular thing to do. He goes, they're probably out tap dancing, having the time of their lives. So in other words, he's saying that we may be thinking that they're talking about us. We're fixated on what they're doing. Meanwhile, it was a fleeting moment that they criticized you and talked about you throughout that negative report, and it's out of their heads. They're not living in that emotion. They've purged that emotion, got it off their chest, made you feel bad, hurt you in any way that they felt that they could. I mean, I had a family that, it was a really weird situation. The father was an ex-professional NFL football player, and they would not bring their kid in their uniform for the 2 months that they trained me. Sometimes they would, sometimes they wouldn't, until finally I said, you can't come anymore. I told the grandparent she cannot work out in her Little Pony t-shirt or whatever it was. And man, 2 hours later, the dad, 6'4" linebacker, standing in my lobby making a scene. And anyway, I said, okay, listen, I'm going to give you your money back. Be on your way. I would think if anybody understands uniformity, which is somebody who was in a uniform their entire lives as a professional baller, you would understand that you can't just show up without a uniform. And then he's like, nah, but they chased me for like a year. Every family member on the internet, they would write reviews on my books that I wrote. Like, why would you buy a book from a guy who made a 6-year-old cry? Why? And then they go to another thing. Why would you buy this, or why would you go there? They just constantly followed me around with negativity. But I tell you honestly, that negativity that they talked about got me more business than anything else, because they kept saying, he made us want to wear our uniform. It's ridiculous. And then people were like, this guy's a nut. I want you to make sure our kids are in their uniform and being respectful and disciplined. Like, so the negative side kind of brought me business, brought me students, but at the same time, they chased after me. So, how do they impact our performance? That's the question. And we have to be really careful not to, like, I don't know if you've ever done this. Class is slow, and I'm yelling at my students that are there, and I'm going like, I can't believe it. Hardly anyone showed up. Like, what is wrong? And one guy raised his hand at one time. He goes, Shion, or Sensei at the time, we're here to train with you. We love your classes. Not why are you mad at us? We didn't do anything. You should be yelling at them. They're the ones that are home being lazy. So, how does it affect us? And that's something that we need to quickly analyze, right, in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah, I know Zig Ziglar tells a story about kicking the cat. You ever heard that story, kicking the cat?
I haven't. Tell me.
So, guy wakes up in the morning. He's running late. He is the CEO of the company. And so he's rushing to get there. And, of course, he gets pulled over and gets a speeding ticket. So he's pissed off, right? So as soon as he gets in, he sees his secretary, and she's just getting a cup of coffee. And he yells at her because, he's angry and she's getting a cup of coffee. And of course that pisses off the secretary. And the secretary is at the water cooler later on, and she's a little angry, and she goes to the receptionist and says, now you need to get these things done. I'm working all, I'm working very hard. You don't have this stuff done. And I'm not doing it justice, but you can see how this is going.
Yeah.
And so the secretary yells at the receptionist. Well, the receptionist is pissed because she's like, look, I'm fielding 250 calls a day, and I've got to listen to people complain and da-da-da-da-da. So by the time she gets home, she is hot. So she walks in the door, and she sees her son watching TV with a big old rip in his jeans. And she gives him the 2-4, right? I mean, the what 2-4? She's yelling at him about having how hard I work, and in order to provide for you, and you got a hole in your jeans. Go upstairs and change and get your homework done. Well, that kid is pissed. That kid is like, Mom doesn't even listen. She doesn't know what happened to me. It wasn't my fault, right? And wouldn't you know it, as he's walking towards his room down the hall, that tomcat just happens to walk right in front of him, and he just kicks that old tomcat, and he looks at him and goes, you probably did something today too. Well, the tomcat didn't deserve any of that, right?
Yeah.
So we don't know what's been going on in people's lives.
That's exactly right, dude. That's a perfect analogy. I mean, I love it because it talks about, how did that negative review impact their performance or our performance? How come, being compassionate and saying, okay, well, maybe they're having a tough day, and maybe they are, or maybe they're just miserable, or maybe they're being influenced. Like 5 years ago, one of my guys picked up and left, right? He wrote me a letter, kind of like I think it was kind of trying to give me a little bit of, some leeway. And he said, listen, I'm going to open up my own school. Maybe we could do seminars in the future. And I'm like, listen, you're not going to just open up your own school and take all my students. And you signed a non-compete, and it got pretty ugly, right? Thousands of dollars later in attorney's fees on both of our sides. It ended. He was allowed by the judge to open up his school. And I had this very bitter feeling in my stomach. A lot of my people, and they were angry. But anyway, everyone wanted to kind of let me know what's going on. And they go, hey, Dwayne, did you hear about so-and-so? I was on his website, and I got to the point where it would always just drudge up bad feelings. So anytime they go, hey, did you hear about so-and-so? I go, stop right there. I didn't, and I don't want to. I don't care what he's doing. I don't care how well he's doing, how bad he's doing. I'm just moving on from this. I need to get it and purge it. And then there's a thing, and by the way, as a Christian man, you could probably understand this better than anyone. This, like, say, you forgive and forget. But a lot of times people don't forget. They just say they forgive.
Well, I don't forget.
Right.
So I think that's a misnomer. So let me say that I forgive, and I forget to extract vengeance on that person.
Okay. I like that.
Because vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. It's God's doing with vengeance, not me. Not me. It's his deal. And in Proverbs, it talks about the fact that, and I'm a paraphrase. This is the Dwayne Brummett version, but it's basically says, and by the way, don't be doing rah 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 when your enemies get their just dessert.
Well, that's another thing too. I was just saying, right? Like I didn't want to know. I didn't want to know. You know, I have to be honest. If they failed, there'd be a little bit of a bubble in my heart that would make me a little bit happy. But that's bad of me. I understand that. But one thing though, I do understand though, forgiveness though sometimes is for ourselves, right? So like the guy who wrote something negative about me yesterday. I don't really care. Like, I'm not going to take it into my heart and have that little drop of poison ruin and affect my day and then make me feel negative towards others. I'm not going to not teach my students fully because I'm afraid that maybe one day they too will leave, right? And I really, during COVID, I don't know if you had this, but I've had so many people reach out to me that I haven't heard from in years that have somehow, some way, wanted to reach out. Maybe it was COVID and the fear of death or, just checking their lives. But they were like, I wanted you to know all you taught me. You changed my life. I wouldn't be here without you. Like I heard a lot of that, during this last year, more so than ever before. People who were thankful and went out of their way. So just my thing is, how do they make us feel? How do they impact our performance? How do we react to it? We talked about all of those things. What do we want to do? Don't always, like what you said about vengeance. What was that quote again that you said about vengeance?
Yeah, it's in scripture. It says, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord.
Right. So not for you to handle yourself.
Why do I want to get in the business of being, superseding God? I'm just going to let him take
Right.
it.
I love it. That's great. So here are some things when it comes to.
Wait. Before you go any farther, have you ever watched Last Man Standing?
Mm-hmm. I love it.
Okay, so there was an episode where Ryan, who is the oldest woman's boyfriend at the time, not wife, but at the time of this exact episode, he was doing social media posting, and then of course he was doing it with his company shirt on, and then they told him, "Look, you can't work until we're suspending you until you take all that post down, right?" And so, long story short, he had posted something about. I guess there is a X-foot tall statue of Mary, and it's actually on, according to what he's saying, which he's probably right, on burial ground, where Indians have their burial ground. And so it was just going on, and I'm going to forget my point now that I'm trying to tell the story. But it was going on. He got excommunicated basically, and oh gosh, where was I going with this? It had something to do with what we were talking about. I just lost it. Crap, maybe it'll come to me later. I'm sorry.
We were talking about vengeance. That was the religious scripture, that part of vengeance, and that's what brought it up.
Oh yeah. So Kyle, the goofy one,
right?
He goes, well, that's well, that's what you. He goes, that's what you get for saying bad things about the Virgin Mary, right? And of course, Ryan was like, well, kind of grumbling about it, and then his girlfriend, now wife in the show, it said something like, "Hey, anybody that can have birth without having sex deserves to have a statue." It was kind of funny how it reminded me of that when you had said that,
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting.
There was another point I was going to make, but I forgot what it was. But anyway,
well, if you remember it, it reminds me kind of my breakfast that I have with my good friend Soke John Oschlager, and he'll be on topic or I'll be on topic, and we'll forget our point, and we will literally backtrack. We'll go, okay, we were talking about, the students, and then we told the story. Then we were talking about the TV show, and we were talking, and then we're like, oh yeah. Anyway, so, and then you rewind it back and your memory kicks back in. So if you remember it, just interrupt and we'll get started.
I do want to tell everybody that I did post in the comments under this video, the 4 social media podcasts that we've done thus far. So one is Social Media Suicide. That's episode number 104. The other one is The Evils and Blessings of Social Media, and that's 123. That's episode 123. And then Social Media Rules to Live By When You're Running Your Business. So that one is not that the other ones aren't good. That one is really good. That's episode number 144. And then How to Deal with Disgruntled People on Social Media. That's 158. That's episode 158. We actually give you step by step how to deal with those situations. So I don't want to rehash that, but I do want to point everybody in those directions.
Yeah. And again, that would be great for them to listen to those, because they are, there's every topic we've covered from every angle to some extent, and we're always coming up with new material. But I think the great thing about what we do on our podcast and what makes it so integral to a school owner is that sometimes they feel like they're on an island all by themselves. They're the ones that are experiencing that emotion. They got a negative post. They had a negative family member say something. There's someone in their lobby talking badly about them to the other people. How do you deal with it? And we've talked about it over these last few different things. And it's really all about how you react, how you deal with it, and how you create, and again, with the one that we did on rules, the step-by-step process of how to handle social media is so important, because it's not going away. I hate the fact that, I'm going to say this because it's like, they're going to think that it's because I'm a fan of Donald Trump or whatever, but it's the media is very controlling over what we show, what we see, and what gets posted. Well, so, and it's that it's almost to the point of control where we have no saying. Like, I'll give you an example. I posted something about 2 weeks ago and it said, what have you gotten out of COVID? And of course, some people get fired up. And I'm like, and I explained it more like, what did you learn during the quarantine? What are some of the good things that happened to you? And I said, ready, set, go. 1, 2, 3, boom. And then I had negative things like, are you serious? 300,000 people died. How could you think about it as good? And people were, there was so many mixed emotions. But just alone on that post, I had 200.
Well, the problem is, but the problem is you have to qualify every single question you ask on social media anymore.
I absolutely.
Right? Yeah. You have to say, yes, I'm social distancing while I'm creating this video in order to, I know. You have to qualify everything anymore because everybody is so hypersensitive, with what's going on. And we all have our own opinions, but it's like, gosh, we just need to take things back a little bit with regards to, let's find out what the person actually means.
Yeah. Exactly. And sometimes even when you explain what you actually mean, they will twist it and take it at their own way. So what I was saying too is that you have to understand that no matter what you say or do, there's going to be those people that will take what you say, even if you have the best intentions, with the polar opposite result. So you have to be the best you can be to communicate. So for example, when someone writes something negative, some school owners will ignore it. They're like, I'll just ignore it. I'm not going to say anything. When you should respond, but respond positively, right? Say, Dwayne, I'm really sorry how you feel and you had a bad experience at my school. I'd love to be able to redeem myself and do whatever I could to make it better. So I'd like to give you a free month of training in my school. I'd love to sit with you and talk to you and find out what made you unhappy and fix it. That alone.
Well, yeah, let's hop on a call or face to face in order to rectify this situation. Yeah, absolutely.
And then, but a reader would see the negative comment, but then see that you're willing to respond and do something to fix it, and they say, well, that's great. They say that doctors who get sued for malpractice are mostly the ones that don't communicate with their clients. They could have even by accident cut the wrong arm off, and if they communicate with those people and they're apologetic and they're sympathetic and they're on top of things. When someone's gotten injured in my school, small injuries, they sprained an ankle, had a bloody lip. If we don't respond, people get pissed. If we just simply immediately follow up, they're like, no, don't worry about it. Thanks so much for responding. I can see that you care. And then the next day respond again. How's Joey doing with that fat lip? People see that and it's genuine. I want to know, I care. I want them to see that. Yeah.
I had an individual who, this was back in November, on a trial, 3rd class, blow their knee out of socket, doing a roundhouse kick. A kid.
Yeah.
Right? We had to call. So we had to send everybody in the back room and let my instructors keep going on with the class. Obviously, we called 911. We isolated him. I mean, we did everything on that aspect correct. Brought in the paramedics, up and left. I texted that night, and then I called the next day. Right. Between then and before we went on break, I had 3 different text threads. I had one call that I did over the break. I texted them twice. One was, "Hey, Merry Christmas. How's so-and-so doing?"
Yeah.
The other one was, "Hey, Happy New Year. How's so-and-so doing?" And in all of that, he just now came back to, he's a little leery about stepping on the floor, but Monday night, he came and sat and watched class. He's going to come again tonight to sit and watch class.
Good.
But that is that follow-up,
Yeah.
that we're doing.
Absolutely, dude. That's important. It's so, and by the way, they said it cuts malpractice suits in half because people won't sue if they like you, right? They're not going to try to hurt you when they feel that you're, oh, let's sue. It's the big money Target, Walmart, like they got the money. Let's get them, but it's a mom and pop. You're going to take away their livelihood. People think differently. So number one, when dealing with it, don't ignore negative comments. Definitely respond. Apologize sincerely. One thing is, don't make false promises. Don't say, "Hey, I'll do this and I'll make it better. I'll make sure your kid loses 50 pounds in the next month." Don't lie to them. And then always be polite. No matter how much they fire back at you, you could always say, "We can agree to disagree." It's funny how I post on social media on like Twitter, and I sometimes get into political exchanges with people on Twitter. That's my kind of political side of posting. But even if I try to say like, well, what has this person done? What has that person done bad or good? People can't communicate without being insulting. Everything is very confrontational on social media because they don't see a person on the. I mean, I see such mean, hurtful comments that say like, "Oh, I wish your kid was aborted." They'll say to the president, or they'll say things like that to people who are followers of his, or other people in social media. Well, from one side to the next, they're just so brutal. I'm like, whoever taught you manners? I'll sometimes write like, whoever taught you to be so hurtful to other people? Like, why would you do that? Don't you realize there's another person that might be reading this, a kid, a family member? But of course they fire back, they'll call me a name or whatever, and so on. So definitely be polite, take it out of the spotlight whenever you can, right? Try like you do, take them into the office, talk to them quietly, call them on the phone, have a meeting, and so on. And also be very personal, like, so they know it's coming from you. Like one of my good friends, Bob Austin, said, if people truly knew your heart and how much you cared about the students, they probably wouldn't say these negative things about you. So they don't know you enough to be able to say those things. So you have to communicate with them and communicate your goals and show them that you care and that you love your students and you love what you do and you love what you're helping them with, et cetera, et cetera. Make sense?
Yeah, and then I would add on what I had said before with regards to the fact that, people have to earn the right to offend you.
Right. Yeah.
People can't offend you that have not earned the right to offend you.
Right.
And I know that's hard to do. I think it was Eleanor Roosevelt that said, people, I don't know what she said. She said something similar to that, where, they can't offend you unless you let them offend you, basically.
Right.
And so, my take on that is what a friend of mine, Lucas Wright, he's a fellow martial arts school owner. He just said, I loved it when he told me that. He goes, people, because we were talking, it's funny, we were talking about the same martial arts owner that was dogging me out, right?
Right.
And I was talking with him about him, and he said to me, he goes, "Oh yeah," he goes, "He doesn't offend me. He hasn't earned the right to offend me." Yeah. And I'm like, oh, I love that.
She said, Eleanor Roosevelt said, and this is the greatest thing about the internet, right? It's like, how old is Eleanor Roosevelt, or like how much money is, and you just go on the internet and boom, you have an answer. But it said, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. That's what she wrote, and it's true though, right? Like I always say, and I'm going to use the word mentally challenged, but let's say you're walking on the street and some mentally challenged person said to you, "Dwayne, that's the ugliest pink or orange sweatshirt that you're wearing." And you look down and you go like, it's a gray sweatshirt. And you say, no, sir, it's a gray sweatshirt. And they go, no, it's pink. And you go like, in your head, you go like, you discredit them immediately, thinking like there must be something wrong with them because their reality is skewed, right? And same thing goes for my students. I say, if someone calls you fat, if you're conscious, let's say you're skinny as a rail and they call you fat, you're going to go like, what's wrong with them? But if you feel a little subconscious about your weight, you might go, oh my God, they call me fat and that bothered me. So we have to learn not to take things to heart. And that quote that you just said by Eleanor Roosevelt is so important. I think that that's a great one because we have to decide whether we let them offend us, whether we take their words into our head and internalize them and make them change how we think. But then again, it's very important for us to always learn from our mistakes, maybe learn from the comments, our critiques, our critics, saying that, hey, Ali Alberigo didn't communicate with us about how to do this or that. I need to get better at that and put every fail-safe in place so that that never happens again.
Yeah, and let's, we only got a few seconds left here, but let me build onto that really quickly. And this could be a whole nother call. But the fact that when you identify that there is a miscommunication that's happening, if you want to take a look at that and see if other people are being are feeling or hearing it that same way, because one, obviously you want to correct that across the board, but two, if you can automate that, and so meaning correct the information that's coming out and then automate it, you'll never have that problem again, or very, very seldom have that problem again. And that would be the next step in creating or in correcting all of that. Would be one, see what the problem is, see if it's affecting everybody else, and then how can I communicate that in a way that it's not a problem anymore, and I don't have to make clean this mess up all the time. How can I automate this so that everybody's educated correctly?
Yeah, and you know what? That happened to me, and it was when I have a Welcome to the Family booklet that we used to give out to people. It's a beautiful 18-page full color booklet. It looks like when you buy a car, you get that beautiful booklet on the car. Well, I made this gorgeous one that explained everything. And then I would have in it other things that were in this little envelope. And when someone joined, we'd hand it to them and say, hey, please go over this. But there were a lot of people that say to me, I never got that. And some of them I knew they did because I handed it to them personally. But sometimes I'd question whether the program manager forgot to give it to them. So I said, how am I going to fix that? So you're right. I changed it from verbal phone calls and 246-810 calls to automations where they get a email and then a text message saying, hey, did you get my email? So now if they say, no, I never got it, please check your spam, or let me have your email address. Maybe I wrote it in wrong. And then we have this series of calls, 246-810, and with follow-ups and check-ins and all this other stuff that go on, so that my communication is better with the clientele. And I thought like, hey, and I'll just leave it with this. I said to myself, what are people questioning? What are they asking at 2 weeks? What would they want to know more of? How do I get my uniform? How do I wash my uniform? How do I tie my belt? And I put all those things into these automations so that they're educated, so that when they're in the school, they're a much more educated client, so that I have a better relationship with them and they understand how to communicate. So we need to do that with anything and everything that we could to make our lives easier and better.
Right, because part of the problem is, haters are going to hate. But the other part of the problem is that we're not all speaking the same language. And so that's really ultimately what we're talking about is, if Japanese is the language in your school, you need to make sure that everybody understands Japanese. For us, it's Korean. We got to make sure everybody understands the Korean. So we all have to make sure that our clients are speaking the same language as us. So I want to remind everybody that this month, Ali and I are reading the book Who Not How by Dan Sullivan. So get your copy, because in a few podcasts longer, what is it? It's going to be on the first podcast in February. So on February 3rd, that's where we're going to talk about that book, the information that we learned from it, and the action steps that we have taken or are going to take by that book. This is not the Book of the Month Club, but we are this year, because that was one of my resolutions, is I want to do a book on this podcast and give action plans to that book for everybody as well. So get that book and start reading it. It's super easy to read. Allie, last things you want to bring
Very
up real
cool.
quick before we end?
No, that's it. Just, everybody on here, please support our sponsors, which is Spark. Also Lead Hunter Media for Facebook advertising and social media advertising. With Gus Lopez, you could reach him through either one of us. My website company, which is pretty busy right now, is EliteInsights.com, and it's spelled
not too busy to help out
no,
other
of course
clients.
not. No, but we're real busy, which is exciting. But it's ELITE, Elite, and then INSITES.com. And by the way, one of our listeners, Dwayne, from Portland Self-Defense Academy, he's one of our listeners. He just hired us to do his website. And but anyway, long story short, one other sponsor, and then of course Dwayne does the health coaching, and he's sponsored also the show. And we'd love to have anybody who's interested to get back to their fighting weight, or to optimum health, or to help a family member, or to get on board as a coach under you, Dwayne, and help their students. That's all there for them. So they should just inbox you, right?
Their students and their parents.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Did I miss any sponsors? That's it. Spark, Lead Hunter.
No, we got all the sponsors. Yeah, everybody. So go to schoolownertalk.com, type in the search bar, social, just type in social. All the social media stuff that we've done is on there. I've also posted it on our YouTube channel, and also this Facebook thread as well. And there's a whole, like, this is our 263rd podcast. So there is a plethora of information to check out on there. And then one other thing, go to schoolownertalk.com and download our martial arts manifesto. All right, the martial arts business manifesto. You're going to want to get a hold of that, because that is going to help you this year in 2021 as well. It's a free download, so you get access to that. All right, and subscribe via iTunes or wherever to get this sent straight to your phone. Allie, thanks a lot, buddy.
Dwayne, thank you. Talk to you soon. See you later, everyone. Take care.
And thanks for the Real Squad shirt. Yeah, Golden Girls, buddy.
All right, man. I'll talk to you soon. All right, bye.